When you're starting out investing in Bitcoin, one of your biggest problems is going to be thinking that the Bitcoin price is too expensive for you to buy at that time. I'm here to tell you that that is not true. Bitcoin changes price very often, but when you look at the price at the time you were thinking of buying it, it's very likely that you're going to think that price is way too high for me to buy right now because the price has gone up since the last time you saw it. When you saw it last, you were thinking the price is too expensive at that time because the price had gone up since the previous time you saw the price. This will continue on until you understand that after a long period of time, Bitcoin will usually have gone up in price almost every time. After 4 years, the Bitcoin price has always ended up at a higher price than it was 4 years ago. That is something that you can confirm if you want to go on and check any Bitcoin chart. You can take a price at any time on the Bitcoin chart and you can go 4 years later and Bitcoin will always be at a higher price than it was 4 years previous. This is what people don't realize when they are looking at the Bitcoin price at that current time. It is just not relevant for you to think this is too expensive for me to buy right now because I saw the price previously and it was a lot lower. So I'll wait for it to go down to that price it was before until I buy again. This is not going to happen, and you are going to continue to make the wrong decisions if you keep thinking that the Bitcoin price is going to eventually get back to that price it was before when you saw it last. I remember when Bitcoin was at 16,000. I remember when it was at 8,000. I remember 4,000. And every single time people see this, they think, oh, look, it was that price before, so I'll just wait for it to go back to that price again before I buy. And then Bitcoin ends up doubling again and again, and they just keep going around in circles and they never actually make an entry into Bitcoin. They never take a position in Bitcoin. You need to realize that Bitcoin is a scarce asset, and after 4 years, it has always ended up at a higher price than it was previously. I'm not saying that absolutely every time is a perfect time to buy Bitcoin, and no matter what time you buy, the Bitcoin price will always go up after you buy it. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that unit bias is a real problem when it comes to investing in, particularly in the Bitcoin space. Unit bias just means that what you see at the moment seems like a high price if you have previously seen the Bitcoin price to be lower. Don't use previous prices that you have seen before to make a judgment on whether you should buy Bitcoin at the moment. Use the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, and I can talk about the Bitcoin 4-year cycle if you want. You can put a comment below and I'll discuss that as well. But this process will be put through by code that the Bitcoin is run on. So you don't have to be worried that the Bitcoin halving is not going to happen or something. You can use the 4-year cycle to say something like, okay, I can see the Bitcoin price peaked there at that point, and then it went down in price for 1 year, as it has done every single cycle, and then it ended up at a low point, and then it started going up for 3 years, and that at the time when it goes down again for 1 year, after that 1 year time frame, it would be a good time to buy Bitcoin. You can make decisions like that, but don't just say, even if it's at a low point. Some people might say, oh, but a few years ago, I saw it was at a lower price, so I won't actually go and buy that. And then they just will forget about it. This is just something that might turn people off Bitcoin, and it could actually ruin your entire investing career. If you just say, look, this is the price it is at the moment, that doesn't mean you can't research Bitcoin. You can read books, you can watch videos. I'll put a couple of book titles that I recommend reading that I read when I first started out in Bitcoin. I think that the difference between myself and someone else who might have both seen Bitcoin around the same time, someone else might have said, oh, this Bitcoin price is way too high for me to buy now. I'll wait for it to go back down. Whereas I said, okay, the Bitcoin price is what it is, but I'm still going to research it and learn everything I can to learn about it, regardless of what the price is. And I will figure out what the price is going to do in the future. I will look back since Bitcoin began, since it was invented back around 2009, and I will use all the information I have to make a judgment on what the price is going to do in the future, what it has done over the previous years. And then I can say, look, this is what I assume is going to happen. Obviously, I can't be 100% sure, and you can never be 100% sure with the Bitcoin price. You can make very good assumptions as to what the Bitcoin price is going to do, and you can do that, I believe, by using a time frame sort of structure rather than a price structure. I think some people often say, I think the price is going to go to 400,000 US dollars. And I'll wait until it gets to 400,000 US before I go and take profits or before I go and do XYZ. But in my opinion, I think it's more of a time frame thing. You can see the 4 year cycle is playing out every time. You can use the 4 year cycle to make a judgment on when you will make entries into Bitcoin, when you will take profits. But some people are talking a lot of online at the moment, and people have lots of different opinions on whether the 4 year cycle is going to end, whether a super cycle might happen. And a super cycle, as opposed to a 4 year cycle, just means that you have this sort of extended cycle that doesn't play out the exact 4 years that you would usually see or that you've previously seen in the previous cycles. A super cycle just continues on from the 4 years, regardless of any super cycle ideas or anything like that. They are yet to be seen, and I will update you on my thoughts on the super cycle if that is going to play out. Even if a super cycle idea over the next year or so plays out, I still believe that we will see a pattern in how Bitcoin is structured in its price, because it's never totally random over a long period of time. Over a short space of time, the Bitcoin price can be very random, and I never advise to try and predict what Bitcoin is going to do over a short space of time. It is just way too random because you have way too many inputs that are changing the sentiment of Bitcoin. If a popular person in the news or someone or a company or someone who has a lot of notability in the media might say something positive or negative about Bitcoin, and this can change sentiment for Bitcoin over short term, and that can send the price up or it can send the price falling. But you shouldn't try to predict what those things are going to you shouldn't try to predict what kind of situations will play out over the short term, because you just don't know, and it can change on a minute to minute basis. There's no point trying to predict that. The main thing you should do is research Bitcoin and figure out how it actually works, because it's pretty simple to do that, in that you can go and get the books, you can read the books. The information that you learn is not going to change in 10 years time. That's something that can't be said for companies, which is a video I discussed previously where I said with a company you can't research them the same way you can research Bitcoin. With Bitcoin you can read a book, you learn it, you figure out how the code works, and you can say, this is how Bitcoin is going to function over the next 10, 20, 30 years. With a company, you don't know, because the board of directors will usually change, the product releases and just general company structure. So it's not possible to go and understand a company the same way as you can Bitcoin. And that is a huge positive with Bitcoin, and you should use that to your advantage. If you think Bitcoin is a company, I have seen some people think that before. It is absolutely not. It is more of a computer protocol, and with it being a computer protocol, this means you can research it, you can learn the way Bitcoin is created, why there will only ever be 21 million coins, why no more coins can be created in the original current Bitcoin system, and it is not going to change. This is what I did when I started out learning about Bitcoin. I realized that the price is what it is. I'm not going to have unit bias and allow that to cloud my judgment. I'm going to learn about Bitcoin and then make a decision on what's going to happen over the next number of years. At that time, when I read books on Bitcoin was about 16,000. Bitcoin is about 95,000 US now. When I saw the Bitcoin price was 16,000, the first thing I did was go and buy a couple of books on Bitcoin to go and learn what it actually is and get the information that I can't find by just looking at the Bitcoin price. This is something that people don't realize. They think they have to just open up the chart and make a decision. The best decisions will be made by you if you go and research what Bitcoin is and how it works, because then the price will almost become irrelevant to you. The price can go up and it can fall, and you can use this to your advantage when you understand what Bitcoin is and that the price is just a thing that will move around. But you can use it when you see a dip in price. You can say, look, I think this is a good opportunity because I have learned what I have learned through the books, through the reading. You might read articles, watch videos. It's not going to be something that is going to stop you from buying Bitcoin just because the price went up from what it was 6 months ago. I also think unit bias is a good thing to investigate and to understand what it is, because it can often cause people to make the wrong decision when they could just make a better decision by just learning what unit bias is. Because as humans, we all generally have unit bias and it's not our own fault. We just need to go and research what it is, understand it. When you are starting out investing in Bitcoin, don't allow the price to stop you from learning about Bitcoin and investigating what it actually is by reading books, watching videos, and reading about it to actually find out what it is, rather than just looking at the price going up and down and thinking that I'll wait until the price goes down more before I buy it. Read books, learn what it is. I can't stress that enough, because once you have the information, the price almost becomes irrelevant, and then you can just go ahead and make the money that you want to make, because you have the information that most people don't have, because you went and put in the time to learn what it is.